Well, week 17 last year, Sunday Night Football, Washington Commanders versus the Atlanta Falcons. Michael Penix connects with Kyle Pitts in the end zone, marking his first passing touchdown in the NFL. It's week 4 now. Penix only has one passing touchdown, and it has not been a connection with a tight end or wide receiver in the end zone so far. Going to hope to change that today as they take on the Commanders here in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. We're back. Thank you guys for joining us for the Falcons pregame show presented by Ticketmaster. Taylor Vismor and Derek Rackley. I have said the last 3 weeks we're going to be with you guys for the next 30 minutes, and they have all been like 40-minute shows. So we're probably going to be with you guys for the next 40 minutes.
Okay.
So
you're setting realistic expectations this week.
Or
you're just subliminally telling me, Rack, you're talking too much, so kind of cut it back a little bit.
You were making me nervous last week. You were making me nervous.
Sorry.
We had 5 minutes to get through the keys, and he ate 3 minutes of the time on one singular key, giving me 30 seconds to get through my press.
So can we go ahead and talk about the Commanders in the game this week? Rag on Rackley week here?
We will get to the Commanders. We will get there. But we actually need to look back at last week because of the loss that happened in Carolina. Obviously, Falcons fall 0-2 in the NFC South, 30-0 with the Commanders or the Carolina Panthers on top. What did you take? There has been so much conversation since that game happened on Sunday. What did you take away from that game last week?
Yeah, so, you know, it's interesting as a player that's played in the league. I actually went back and I looked at it, and I was actually part of 3 different teams that got shut out, okay? So sometimes you just never know. Like, I don't have one of those vivid memories all the time as far as how every game went through my career, but then I went back and looked, and I was like, gosh, I got shut out 3 times. It's actually pretty. So what I'm saying is, a lot of NFL players have been there before, and whether it's a shutout 30-0, whether it's a 17-3, sometimes they all feel the same, right? You got your butt kicked, and sometimes you just have to call a spade a spade. There are certain times in the NFL, especially in this profession now, when you're in the media, when you're in broadcasting, to me, it is not the right thing to do to say, you know what, they lost the game 30-0, but here's what they did great. You didn't really do anything great if you lost 30-0. So sometimes you just have to take one on your chin. You've got to learn from the performance. Then you've got to flush it. Like, I'm talking completely out of your memory. But then you got to take that next opportunity to get back on the field and change the narrative. If you don't want people to talk about what happened last week, you don't want people to talk about starting the season 1-2, you know how you change that is you go out and you play great in your next game. And that game is against the Washington Commanders. So I know we're trying to talk about Carolina, but there's not really a whole lot. Yes, you could say the defense, the numbers weren't all that bad.
Right.
You lost 30-0,
Yeah.
right? So sometimes you just have to be honest with yourself. And even Raheem Morris, when they were talking about the issues with the headset, he said, listen, I am not making excuses about the headset. We've got to be better.
Yeah.
Because this is their job. And if something happens with the communication device, you've got to have an immediate backup.
Yeah.
There's got to be a plan. If this happens, we're going to a one-word call in this situation. We're putting the onus back on the quarterback's shoulders and say, get us out of a bad situation. That's what their job is, right? Whether it's wristbands, whether it's an arm signal from the sideline, whether it's a one-word call that we get in trouble, we're running this play, right? You don't make excuses because you're supposed to have a plan, prepare for every single action that happens throughout the course of the game. So the Falcons organization took ownership. Raheem Morris, their quarterback, Michael Penix, you got to come out and put a better performance on the field today.
Yeah, I agree. We're not going to sit and talk about, well, what did they do well? Because it was 30-0. There was nothing on the scoreboard for the Falcons. But I think what impressed me after the loss, after the game struck 0-0, was the response from the players. Drake London said in open locker room, this is not our standard of football at all. At all. There's nothing about this performance that even comes close to our standard of how we want to play. But John Robinson said that this is a game that either makes a team or breaks a team, and it's our job now to figure out which way we're going to lean. Is this going to make us into a better team, or will this break us and this is going to be our new standard of how the Falcons look in 2025? I actually got to sit down with Chris Lindstrom after the game on Monday morning talking about this loss, and he said, look, it's 30-0, it's embarrassing. This is an embarrassing loss. This is humbling. There's a moment that you sit on the plane ride home and you think, that was a lot. I've never been in something like that. But as a leader and as someone on this team, we have to flush it and we have to move forward. And if we don't, we're going to continue to snowball, and there might be more of this to come if we do not flush it and make a stand now.
And I think the frustration from a lot of the fans is coming off of this Sunday Night Football performance against Minnesota, where it was like, oh, wow, like this team truly is taking some steps forward, and they did it in a national spotlight where everybody could see it, everybody could hear the game. They saw the performance that they put on the field, and then you went from there, and then you put the Carolina performance out there. And that's, I think, what everybody was kind of caught off guard, not just fans, but people in the local media, people all over the league. Is like, what happened between week 2 and week 3 that was so different, right? And sometimes you just played bad. Michael Penix Jr. said, I played bad. I got to make better throws. So, yes, we could sit here and say, well, they missed this block and it turned into this. Or if they would have got this play, it would have been a 3-yard gain instead of a 30-yard gain. You could sit there and do the if game all you want. They played really bad, learn from the performance, and get better. Think about this last year. Falcons started 1-2 last year. They ripped off 3 straight afterwards, right? Not saying that's what's going to happen today, but that's kind of what needs to happen from an internal perspective. You talk to Chris Lindstrom. They got to change the narrative right now. You want to fall to 1-3, or you want to even it up in 2-2 and maybe put together a 3-game losing or winning streak like you did last year. You got to get the first one today. Yeah,
and what I thought was so interesting, staying on Chris Lindstrom really quickly and then we'll move forward, is he said, look, it was 30-0, but a loss is a loss in the NFL. It could have been 26-27 and it's still a loss in our record. And we have 14 games left. Like, kind of let that sink in if you're a fan of the Falcons and you're listening today. There's 14 games left in this NFL season. There are 14 more opportunities to right that wrong of 30-0 against Carolina Panthers. Thankfully, it's a division matchup. You'll see the Carolina Panthers, again, they're going to be here, and we're going to see what they'll be able to do later in the season. But Raheem Morris even spoke to media about his thoughts on the 30-0 loss, about why he's not in the business of dying slowly. Take a look.
It was at whenever 20-0 hit when it became a 3-score game yesterday, to be honest with you. Went to that 3-score game, and you knew I'm not in the mood for dying slow. So, man, we got to be more aggressive. We got to go for some of these 4th downs. And you know the analytics better than anybody. That thing's saying go for it at 4th and 8, 4th and 9. And we're prepared to, no matter where you're at in the field. And we went for it a couple times on 4th and manageables, which we could have had, that we did not get, that you want back. And you want to be able to have those things in order to give you a chance to get back in the game. I think I was just asked, I don't even know, radio show, maybe it was Arch, but, you know, how do you turn those tides when it's going that way? You make a couple of those 4th downs, you go down, you score, you get the ball back, and you stay that consistent rhythm throughout the course of the game, and you find your way back into it, and we were not able to do that.
All right, so I've said it earlier when I was talking about open locker room, but John Robinson said in open locker room after the game on Sunday, this needs to be the week where we come together so we can become the team we want to become. And with that came changes during the week. Zach Robinson announced that he will be moving down to the sideline. Let's start with that change first.
Yep.
Why is that a big enough change to make such headline news, and how will this help the Falcons find the win today?
Again, kind of using that phrase 30,000-foot view, from a team perspective, it's okay, what can we do to create a little infusion in the offense, right? An offense that has not been operating on the type of efficiency that they want to. And you say, okay, well, how much of a difference does it make when you move a coordinator from the box down to the field? Well, the difference is up in the box, the coordinator can see a whole lot more of what's transpiring on the field, right? He can see all 22 players, the spacing on the field, and he can make some of his calls accordingly. Well, the disadvantage is you don't get that face time. You don't get that eye contact with your offense, and most importantly, your quarterback when he comes off the field. So now Zach Robinson's going to move from the press box down to the field, and immediately after you get, let's just say, a 3-and-out or the drive stalls and the quarterback comes to the sideline, they had a specific play called, and the offensive coordinator can say, hey, this is the reason why I called it. I was seeing this tendency. Tell me what your eyes showed you and why you made the throw that you did and how we can adjust moving forward. Are you comfortable with the play call? What are they attacking us with defensively that's different than what we saw during the week? And this is just that immediate feedback that you can get back and forth between your offensive coordinator and your quarterback and kind of deepen that relationship even more in game, face-to-face, that face time that you truly need sometimes. So that's what Atlanta is going for, to get a little bit more face time with Zach Robinson on the sideline.
Yeah, I also think it helps get the play call off faster. I think what you saw last week, yes, there were headset issues, but I think in the weeks prior to that too, there was a little bit of communication disconnect in a way. They were having a hard time getting the play call off in time to let Michael tell everyone what the play call is and get everyone set, make sure the motion's coming. There's a lot going on. I mean, Kirk Cousins said it in that quarterback show last year. There's a lot of motions to this offense, and so to be able to make sure that everyone's where they need to be, get the play call off, run your motion, and then also assess the defense, that's a lot going on in 30 seconds. So this might help with having Zach Robinson on the field today and for the foreseeable future to get the play call off faster, to help Michael be a little bit more calm in the pocket and on the field when the offense is out there. Another move that the Falcons made on the offensive side of the ball, they did let Ike Hilliard, the wide receiver coach, go, and TJ Yates will assume that position now as the wide receivers coach and the pass game coordinator. And let me just, I kind of want to start on this one. Sorry, I'm going to steal your thunder a little bit here. I actually think this was the TJ Yates moving to wide receiver. I thought TJ moving to wide receiver coach was actually a really great move for this Falcons organization, because he was a wide receivers coach before Raheem Morris got here. When Arthur Smith was here, he was a wide receivers coach. He's got really great continuity with Drake London. And then when Raheem Morris came, he became the quarterbacks coach, working with Kirk Cousins, working with, Michael Penix. He knows what these quarterbacks want to see in their progressions. He knows where they want to be, where they want their wide receivers and tight ends to be in their progression before they throw the ball. And so moving him now to wide receivers helps the wide receivers get there and see the ball a little bit faster as a quarterback-minded coach, as TJ Yates is.
Yeah, and he can kind of see the adjustments that need to be made. Maybe he was feeling some things that were not quite getting communicated properly to the wide receivers, and sometimes these changes happen throughout the course of the season, and not only maybe it's because a coach wasn't quite getting the message across to his group, but maybe it's also kind of, hey, we're putting everybody on notice here that the play has not been acceptable. And what happens in the National Football League when play is not acceptable is, unfortunately, guys lose jobs, whether that's players, whether that's position coaches, or even all the way up the ladder to coordinators and head coaches. That's just the nature of this beast. Is your job is to win football games. You know, I always kind of make the joke that sometimes in the college game, even though the college game has shifted, you can talk about getting players graduated and turning them into men and all that stuff. Listen, that doesn't happen in the National Football League. Your job is to get W's, and that is it. Everything is based off of getting wins and getting into the postseason, ultimately getting to the Super Bowl. That's all you are judged on. And if things are not marching in that direction, changes have to be made. So to be determined on whether or not this is actually going to end up helping, but it's an infusion into this organization to say, hey, Everything that we've seen to this point has not been good enough. I think if my tally is right, Falcons have 3 touchdowns this year and 7 field goals, and none of them to the wide receivers.
Right.
So that has to change. The wide receiver group is too good to not get more involved in the game plan and ultimately not end up more in the end zone.
Exactly. And something else I want to note really quickly is from week 1, the completion percentage to wide receivers or any pass catchers has decreased week after week. Week 1, they finished with a 64% completion rate. Week 2, 61% completion rate. And then last week against Carolina Panthers, 56% completion rate. With that kind of level of 4% and less and less, you just can't keep that snowball going. You have to stop it, and we have to figure out as the Falcons organization, how do you get into the end zone? How do you have more completions? So hopefully TJ Yates, being the wide receivers coach now, assuming that position after Ike Hilliard has left, and now Zach Robinson being on the field, we're hoping as an organization that will kind of turn the tide and hopefully put some more wins and some more touchdowns on the board in the end zone. Zach Robinson, Michael Penix were both asked about what it will be like to have the offensive coordinator down on the field earlier in the week, and this is what they said.
I think, we talked about it even in training camp, possibly going down there. Always thought about it. I thought this was just a good time to kind of reset. Obviously, we'll put KJ Black. He'll go up to the booth. And then I'll go down there. I think just from a communication standpoint, it's always good to see those guys' eyes, hear their response after the play, after the series rather, with offensive line, QBs, receivers. So something I've always thought about, and then just thought, obviously the headset last week went out on us a ton, and I know the NFL is looking into those things with some of those things with Mike's headset going out at Carolina. So obviously just being down there, being closer to the guys was the main thing. But yeah, I'll go down and we'll roll from there.
Yeah, it'll be good. Just to be able to have him to talk to on the sideline, so he can tell us what he's seeing as well and why he's calling certain plays, in the series that's coming up. So it should be good.
All right, so we will see them on the sidelines later in the game today. But let's go ahead and kind of talk about this Washington Commanders team before the game started today and before warm-ups even started. The Commanders and the Falcons coaching staff and support staff, they celebrated the Greg Knapp stair climb. We got a quick video to show you what that's about and who all participated today.
For 25 years, our friend Greg Knapp ran the stadium stairs before every single game until he was tragically killed by a distracted driver.
So we are here today for year 4 of the Greg Knapp stair climb, honoring Greg's life with the mission to combat distracted driving and save lives.
On behalf of both teams and the Coach Knapp Memorial Fund, we ask you to join us in doing your part and only focusing on the road while driving.
We miss you, Napper!
All right, well, Greg Knapp is a pretty well-known coach here in Atlanta, and he was kind of known for doing the stair climbs every game all around the lower bowl. I know that you knew him a little bit, so I just want to give you the floor if you want to say anything about him.
Yeah, knew him well. Was actually the offensive coordinator for 2 of the years that I was here, and I was a long snapper and backup tight end and didn't play on offense a whole lot because my primary role was on special teams, but I always went to the meetings, and he was just such an infectious personality that I got to know him really well over 2 years, to the point to where after I left and went to Seattle, and then after I ended up retiring from the National Football League, I kept in touch with him. We constantly sent text messages to each other. I actually reached out to him. You don't even know this, Taylor, that I was actually thinking about getting into coaching at one point. And his message to me was, getting into coaching is tough. It's a grind. It ends up moving your family all over the country. And he was telling me at the time, he's like, I've been in 6 different locations in the last 5 years, and I was just blown away when his whole tragedy happened, and actually ended up speaking with his daughter afterwards, keeping in contact with the family, and that's all because of the impact that he left on my life and he did with so many other people. For such a stressful job that it is coaching in the National Football League, he always had the most positive attitude, the best energy, got us ready to go each and every week, each and every game. And it's sad that he's no longer here with us.
Yeah, I never got the chance to meet Coach Knapp, but I've heard nothing but glowing reviews about him. So to know that his legacy continues with the Greg Knapp stair climb that they do every time that the Commanders or the Falcons can find a time and one of the 18 games or 18 weeks that they have to do the Greg Knapp stair climb, it means a lot. So I'm glad that his legacy gets to kind of continue on,
Yep,
and today especially. So let's go ahead and get to this Commanders matchup today. Falcons looking to get back in the winning column, get back to 500 before they hit the bye. Let's kind of start with the Commanders. What are we seeing so far? Obviously, Jaden Daniels is not going to be the starting quarterback today. Marcus Mariota will get the start. Let's kind of talk about Mariota because he is a friendly face of this Falcons organization.
Yeah, he definitely is. Spent a year here and kind of had varying reviews, if you will, but he got the start last week for the Commanders, and he played really well. And it was interviewed after the game, and it was an emotional interview for him because of the journey that he's been on. Of course, remember, former Heisman Trophy winner, started his career with the Titans, and then since then has bounced around. The Raiders, the Falcons, of course, Philadelphia Eagles, and now in his second year with the Commanders. And because of the injury to Jaden Daniels, he's being thrusted back into the action as a trusted backup, a guy that's got a lot of experience in the league. So what does he bring? He brings another similar profile to Jaden Daniels as far as an athletic, mobile, running style quarterback that's not afraid to tuck it down, pick up yards with his legs. He is not, at this point in his career, as electric, in my opinion, as Jaden Daniels is. I think Jaden Daniels is one of the smoothest running quarterbacks in the league right now. I would put him in the same conversation with Lamar Jackson, but Mariota showed even in their game last week that if you give him too much open space, he's going to make you pay for it. Not the passer that I think Atlanta has to worry about in a broad sense, but it's like I almost hesitate to say that because that's when you underestimate somebody and then they end up taking advantage of you. And then all of a sudden you look up and it's like, gosh, where did these 3 explosive passing plays come from Marcus Mariota? I didn't see that coming. You got to be prepared for everything with him, but he brings that multi-dimensional threat to the defense. Yeah,
this will be Marcus Mariota's first game in the bins since leaving the Atlanta Falcons. But you brought up Jaden Daniels. I brought up Jaden Daniels. This is a huge miss for this Commanders team. Second week out for Jaden Daniels. Obviously, Michael Penix, Jaden Daniels, they dueled together last year. It was a insane Sunday night football game, and I do want to recap that really quickly before we kind of move forward with the offense of what they have left. But I mean, look at these numbers, just insane. And something that you pointed out to me was the rushing yards here, and I just want to give you the floor on that really quick because of the rushing yards that y'all saw last year.
Because this last year's matchup, a lot of the rushing yards came because of Jaden Daniels and what he was able to do. Remember, that game got to the point to where it was almost like they said, all right, hey, young fella at quarterback, we're going to put this on your shoulders and we need you to do some of your magic. And for the Commanders' perspective, he was able to do that. They ended up winning that game in overtime. 216 yards rushing in that game, 6 out of 13 on third down, which is pretty good. That's winning football. Vice versa, Atlanta, just 2 out of 10 on third down. So to me, you look at some of those critical stat categories, especially when you get into these close games, and who ends up winning? Who stays on the field more when it comes to third down? We see that Washington was able to do that. Why did they do that? Probably because they had the ability to pick up more first downs running the football. 216 yards last year, 2 out of 3 games this year, over 200 yards rushing. So that's going to be an area what they want to continue to try to dominate the opposition, to try to set the tone today against Atlanta is by running the football. McNichols is one of those guys that they'll continue to get the football into his hands. But to me, it goes back to a lot of run defense because that's what Washington wants to try to do to create an advantage.
Well, let's kind of go back to the offense and what they have today because Terry McLaurin will not be playing today. He will be inactive. So you're kind of talking about that rush offense that they have. How does that, I mean, I know that he's a wide receiver, but how does that almost help them in their rushing need today against the Falcons?
Yeah, Terry McLaurin's one of those wide receivers that I don't know if he gets enough publicity for how much he has meant to that organization. Just look at the numbers between last year and this year and what he has done. I mean, team leader across the board basically when it comes to the passing game. So he's not going to be in the lineup. However, remember, not like last year, but the Commanders brought in Deebo Samuel. And so he is a pretty darn good replacement, not only at the wide receiver position, but also in the kicking game as well. We'll talk about special teams a little bit later. But yes, they're missing a big offensive weapon at the wide receiver position, at the quarterback position, and they've also been scrutinized a little bit on the offensive line for their inability to keep people out of the backfield. Jaden Daniels was sacked 7 times early in the first couple of games. Marcus Mariota once last week. That's 8 sacks through the first 3 games of the season. So they've had some issues up front that they're trying to work through on their offensive line. Once again, how can Atlanta take advantage of that? Can they start creating some havoc up front by crossing ends and tackles? Can they show linebackers up in the gap to kind of muddle up the look so they have to communicate on who's coming, who's dropping out, who's responsible for who? Anytime you get offensive linemen that are struggling a little bit, they realize they're under fire because their quarterback has been sacked. You want to get them to start thinking a little bit more. And as soon as you can get them to hesitate, that's when you can win. So that's what Jeff Ulbrich is going to try to do on the defensive side, is how can we take advantage of an offensive line group that's been criticized a little bit, even though they still have gotten a couple of wins.
Falcons only had 1 sack last week against Bryce Young. That, of course, came from Caden Ellis. But, I mean, this is not a new kind of quarterback that the Falcons defense is seeing in terms of a dual threat, of a guy that can make stretch plays and make things up with his legs. I mean, obviously, with Baker Mayfield and with Bryce Young and even J.J. McCarthy, if you want to throw him in there as well. How will the Falcons be able to snap back today, knowing that Marcus can stretch plays and he can use his feet as well?
Yeah, we kind of talk about rush lane integrity, okay? And what I mean by that is when you get 4 guys or 5 guys coming upfield, everybody's got a responsibility when it comes to a gap, first of all, okay? So when they're coming upfield, they got to make sure, okay, I've got these A gap, the B gap, the C gap covered, whether that's defensive tackles, defensive ends, or linebackers, depending on what the look is. But then it's when you get upfield. And that's probably when it's the most important when you're facing a mobile quarterback, is you can't run too far around the corner. And what I mean by running around the corner is a edge rusher, okay, a James Pierce Jr., a Jalen Walker, all right, a Leonard Floyd, them going up around the offensive tackle and then just continuing to run around the corner. If they don't stop and redirect, that's when it opens up a huge lane for a mobile quarterback. So Marcus Mariota, as soon as he feels a pass rush that gets past him, so runs around, because his offensive tackle is coached to continue to push those guys around, as soon as he sees a lane, that's when they want to tuck it down, right? Especially for a mobile quarterback like Mariota, who said he's probably going to be a look at 1 in the progression, maybe 2, and then if I see a lane, I'm gone.
Yeah.
Whereas a pocket passer is going to do 1 step up, get outside, keep the eyes downfield. I'm looking 2, I'm looking 3, I'm looking 4, right? That's not going to happen with Mariota. He's going to look at 1 to 2, and then he's gone.
Right.
But if you get up the field and you stop and you redirect and you get off of that offensive line block, that's when you have a chance to cage him in. So it's coming up the field, stopping, redirecting, and make sure that he stays here. But if you get all the way up around, that's when the big seams open up and he ends up ripping off explosive runs.
Yeah, we'll see if the Falcons defense will be able to do that today. It's going to be a tall task for that front 4 or even that front 5 if they decide to go a 5-2, 5-3 set. We'll see what happens today as they take on the Washington Commanders. Let's go ahead and get to the inactives today, because speaking of the Falcons defense, A.J. Terrell will be out for the 2nd week in a row with a hamstring injury. He will be inactive today. But then on the Commander side of the ball, a couple more bigger names for them. Jaden Daniels obviously talked about him, Terry McLaurin, and then Noah Brown, another wide receiver. When you see these inactives, we kind of already touched on these guys. How does this help the Falcons find their win today?
Yeah, I mean, we knew kind of coming into this one with Atlanta, especially watching the participation report and practice this week, that the top 3 names likely were not going to be able to play. But Washington has been banged up early this season, and this is, unfortunately, this happens to everybody. You could probably look at about half the teams around the league, even though it's early on in the season. There's a lot of reasons why. A lot of people think that because starters are not playing as much in preseason, a lot of people think it's because they're not necessarily training as hard as they used to, that you're seeing more soft tissue injuries that are happening early in the season. But by and large, everybody is kind of dealing with the same stuff, right? Well, that's why you build depth on a team, and that's why it's always the next man up philosophy. But sometimes it's just completely different when you're trying to replace a Jaden Daniels or you're trying to replace a Terry McLaurin. That next man up is generally not that much of a difference maker. So you understand who's not playing, but then you don't take a step back. You don't underestimate the opponent, because listen, I've seen it too many times. You can even go back to last year. I felt like the game against the Saints last year was like everything was setting up for Atlanta to go in and trounce them, and they didn't, right? Sometimes you just think about too much about what a team is not dealing with or what a team has been dealing with as far as a coaching transition. All you got to think about is playing the game. Don't worry about the opponent. Yes, you got to prepare for them, but you got to go out and play the game and execute the game.
Well, Michael Penix scored his first passing touchdown last year against the Commanders, connecting with Kyle Pitts. We both mentioned that earlier. This year has yet to connect with a tight end or a wide receiver in the end zone. Hoping to change that today. When you look at this pass defense that Washington has and the pass catchers that the Atlanta offense has, how will they be able to turn that tide today?
Yeah, this is a defense that I've actually got a lot of respect for, when I look at the names that are on this defense, you got a lot of all-pro players.
Yeah.
You've got Super Bowl MVPs. You've got some dogs at their position now. I mean, you've got some really good players. You got a couple guys up front, Deron Payne and Javon Kinlaw, that you got to make sure that you secure up front, right? You can't let those guys end up causing a whole lot of issues. Then you got a guy that Bobby Wagner, which I'm going to say I think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer once he retires. I think he's that good. In his 14th year, he's led the league in tackles 3 times. The NFL's active leading tackler right now. Nobody else in the NFL has more tackles, and this guy's an Iron Man. He plays. I think he's played in 205 games. He started in 203 of them.
Yeah.
Okay, you got Frankie Luvu, who Atlanta knows about him. All right, you got Marshawn Lattimore in the secondary. There's a lot of really talented players, but it all starts up front. If you don't secure the defensive line and getting into Luvu and Wagner on the second level, it's going to be a long day because there's playmakers and tackling machines across the board for the Commanders.
Yeah, I've mentioned, I think the last couple of weeks in the pregame show is that the run game is really a cornerstone for this Falcons offense. They like to establish the run early and often in the game. And for this Commanders defense, I mean, their run defense has been really great. They have 78 quarterback pressures in the first 3 weeks from Pro Football Focus. I mean, how do you make sure that you can either run the ball or give Michael time to find the progression and see all the options that he has, or maybe just dump it off to running back today?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this is your game plan. It's your scheme. Like, what are they coming into? What does Zach Robinson have for this offense that he feels like he can take advantage? Then it's communication across the offensive line to making sure that there's not any free runners coming. You don't want these defensive tackles just getting up the field immediately. You don't want them to have a free runner, a blitzer from the second level coming through. And we'll talk a little bit more about execution on offense, but it's just making sure that these playmakers, they don't end up causing havoc. We talked a little bit about Von Miller. I mean, former Super Bowl MVP. He's probably going to be on somewhat of a limited snap count. That's how it was when he was in Buffalo. But when he comes on the field, you know what he's going to do. He's there to rush the passer, and he creates havoc in the backfield. So knowing where he's at and making sure that he's accounted for. But getting this guy going is super important. And arguably one of the most electric players in the National Football League has got to continue to touch the ball. They got to get him going in the run game. We know how dangerous he can be in the pass game as well, but that all starts up front. If the offensive line does not communicate and execute against the defensive line, winning the line of scrimmage is going to be extremely important today.
All right, well, let's see if they'll be able to do that. Let's go ahead and move to the third phase of the game. I know that it's your bread and butter. You love talking about special teams. So I'll let you have the floor on this one today. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I was watching the game from the Commanders last week, and one of the first plays you see is a big return from Deebo Samuel on kickoff return. And so there has been some issues this year for the Atlanta Falcons on special teams, whether it's come from the kicking situation, whether it's come from fielding balls on kickoff return, or it's come from big returns. It's not necessarily something that you want to have to deal with early in the season, is that third phase costing you games, costing you field position. So special teams has got to be a whole lot better. We're likely going to see Deebo Samuel. They've got to, we've heard from Raheem Morris, they got to get the kicking situation figured out. Was not good week 1, was great week 2. Parker Romo hitting 5 field goals on the road against the Vikings. Not good last week, missing 2 field goals. You get those opportunities to score. Yes, you want to put the ball in the end zone, but if you have to settle for a field goal, especially a makeable field goal, you've got to be able to put that ball through the upright. So special teams is going to have to be there today. That third phase needs to win because it has not been consistent enough for Atlanta this season.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Parker Romo missed 2 field goal attempts last week against Carolina, and Raheem Morris did come out and say that he will get the start again today. He will be the starting kicker. We will see if he can make a comeback of sorts today for the Atlanta Falcons. But you brought up Deebo Samuel a couple of times with this Washington special teams unit. This special teams unit for Washington is first in the NFL in punt return yards. Deebo Samuel has 221 punt return yards on 6 returns. When he gets the ball in his hands, why is it so imperative to bring him down as quickly as possible?
It's a great question because he's got so much confidence in his ability that he gets the ball in his hands and he's looking to make something happen. He's not the type of guy that's just like, oh, I'm going to catch this ball and I'm going to get 5 yards, right? He's the guy that said, I'm going to make something happen. Not only that, but he's got physicality. He is a wide receiver, but he looks like he's in a tight end body.
Yep.
And so if you don't come with the right technique and mechanics when you're trying to tackle him, he's going to run right through a tackle. He's going to run right through an arm tackle. He's going to pull his legs out if you try to wrap him up at the ankles. So that's the challenges that he presents, because he is such a physical specimen and he's got so much confidence in himself. He wants to make big plays, understanding the importance of the kicking game. So I'm sure there's been a lot of emphasis this week in that special teams meeting room on making sure that they don't let him take advantage of the game in the third phase. They're going to have their work cut out for them.
Yeah, Debo and the explosiveness that he can have in special teams almost reminds me of Cordero Patterson in a way.
Sure,
I remember when he was here and the Falcons played the Bears, I think, he muffed a punt and he fumbled it and they got the ball back. The very next kick return, ran it back for a touchdown. And I remember thinking when he stood out there in the backfield, I thought, he's going to take this one all the way home. And he did, and it was incredible. It made him like the NFL all-time leading kick return touchdown leader or something in the NFL. So kind of the same with Deebo Samuel. He's going to make an explosive if you let him, and if he messes up, look for him in the next punt return.
They've got so much pride in that part of the game, and to your point, like Cordero Patterson was like so upset with himself, and he's like, look, y'all watch this.
Yeah.
Well, that mistake, that one was on me, but watch what I'm about to do.
Yeah.
Deebo Samuel's got the same type of ability.
We'll see if the Falcons can bring him down and make those punt returns a little bit smaller today on Deebo Samuel's behalf. All right, let's go ahead and get to the keys to the game presented by Wells Fargo. We have more time this time. Last time we only had 5 minutes to get through.
Okay, good. So you're not
Take
rushing
your
me through this.
Yes, we got 3. I got my preference. You go ahead with your first one.
I'm going to throw a loophole, and I'm going to just give you 3 words,
like a
and then
dissertation?
it's on you.
Okay.
No, it's execution on offense. That's my first key to the game. And that's, I talked about it. It was coming. It starts up front with the offensive line. It's establish the run game and maybe bring a little bit more creativity in getting both of these running backs going. And then Michael Penix Jr. talked about it after the Carolina game. He's got to play better. He understands it. And so you got to make some throws in the passing game today, whether that's to Kyle Pitts, whether that's getting these wide receivers back involved in the game plan, much like we talked about the changes, the transition at the wide receiver coach position, that everybody is on alert, and they're looking at this offense to make better plays. The investment has been there. They've invested in an offensive line over the years. They invested in a first-round quarterback, first-round wide receiver, first-round tight end, first-round running back. Think of all these guys that are on this offense. It's time to produce, and not just once or twice, but consistently through 4 quarters. And it just goes out to guys making plays. I can sit here. You can try to criticize coaching or scheme all you want. At the end of the day, players are the ones that play in the game on Sundays. Players have to make plays if you want to win.
I mean, there were a lot of drop passes last week. Let's see if I can find it. 23 for 41. He threw the ball 41 times. There were only 23 completions. So, like you said, the execution, which was not there last week. I know that everyone is thinking, well, they're not trying hard enough. They're not playing hard enough. It's not like Michael Penix and Zach Robinson don't want to win football games. It's not like they don't want to have touchdowns in the end zone. It's just a matter of finding plays that can execute and get that offense into the end zone. We'll see if they can be able to do it today with him on the sideline. Go to the second key. What you got for me?
Stopping the run. And I mentioned this already, and I think the biggest thing you got to remember is 2 out of 3 games this year, the Commanders have rushed for over 200 yards. And then you don't have to look further than the 2024 game on Sunday Night Football. The Commanders rushed for over 200 yards. So what has been their recipe when they win? By the way, the game that they did not win this year, they did not run the football well. I believe it was 51 yards on 19 carries. So that's been their calling card this year, is when they've been able to have success running the football and get a couple of explosive runs throughout the course of the game. That is what set them up for success, how they were able to beat Atlanta last year, how they were able to beat their first 2 opponents this year. I understand they got a victory against the New York Giants. The New York Giants are struggling a little bit this year, but in the NFL, you still got to win games. So they're going to try to run the football with Mariota, with this complement of running backs that they have. They've got to be able to be ready to win up front on defense. Get these guys down on the ground. You can give up 2, 3, and 4, but don't give up 11. Don't give up 13. Don't give up 37 in the run game. It's going to be a long day.
We talked about it earlier, how this was going to be a big challenge for this defensive front, but I also think for the second part of that defense as well with the linebackers, with Caden and Divine Diablo. I think it's going to be a big, tall task for them to make sure if Jalen and James are rushing the passer, we got to make sure that the run is being stuffed and the runner is not going anywhere. So it's going to be a big test for the linebackers today, and of course that defensive front. What is your third and final key today?
One of the kind of mantras here in Atlanta is rise up, right? And this is not really a football key here, and it's rise to the challenge, because this organization, this team has been challenged all week by the national media, by the local media, internally, by the coaching staff, by the players, I'm sure they're challenging themselves, is you've got to rise to the challenge and erase the memory of last week. And I'm telling you, the only way that it happens in any level of football is put a better product out on the field, something that is encouraging, something that people can be happy about, and in the end, a performance that ends up getting a win. So you just got to rise to the challenge. Washington's coming in here with the exact same goal. What is their job? Win a football game, win one on the road, find a way to get one more point than the opponent. Atlanta's job is to respond after the embarrassment that we've talked about last week. They don't want to hear this anymore because this is a different age. They have social media. Things are popping up on their phone all the time. What's wrong with Atlanta? Offense can't get going. Defense thought they had a turnaround, right? In my era, there was not that stuff going on. We didn't have social media. We didn't have everybody with a podcast.
What was it like to
Those were the good old days.
I don't know anything about them.
When you only knew people were talking about you in a newspaper. Do you know what that is, by the way? A newspaper?
Okay, all right.
Okay, and reading the local news or the media, not social media, or everybody has their own podcast, which, by the way, I'm on a podcast for the Falcons.
Yeah, I was about to say.
I'm just saying, okay? You rise to the challenge, change the narrative.
All right, time for my preference because listen, I don't do the keys because they get a little too in the weeds for me, and I'm just trying to have a good time, you guys. And so my preference today is just to bounce back. It kind of goes off of your key, your third and final key today. Instead of rising to the challenge, just bounce back as a team. Obviously, the team will go into bye week next week, and then they will host the Bills on Monday Night Football in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So let's go into the bye with a win. Let's bounce back. Let's go back to 500. Let's make sure that there is a win in the column before you hit the bye week, because if you don't do it now, it's going to be a long and hard bye week to kind of just flush that down and then start moving forward again.
Do you know who Big Sean is?
Okay, I knew you were going to do it. I knew you were going to do it. Before the show started, he was like, I have something to say about bounce back. And I knew it.
But tonight I bounce back.
Okay. That's all you know?
I could probably remember a little bit more, but like if our producers were really good, they could put on the music and then I could start singing.
It's copyrighted. We can't do it.
Oh, yeah, it's probably good. Probably a good idea that I don't rap anyway. It's not really my forte.
Yeah, stick to football.
Nice job, though. Bounce back.
Thank you. Bounce back.
Even more impressed that you knew Big Sean.
Who do you think I am? All right, we're getting off the rails here. And look, we are early.
I could get off the rails.
We maybe next week we'll get off the rails because we won't even be here. It's going to be bye week next week, so there will be no show next week. And then we will see you guys back here in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, Monday Night Football against the Bills. Make sure to buy your tickets. If you are in Mercedes-Benz Stadium next week, make sure to come hang out, or not next week, 2 weeks from now. Make sure to come hang out with us. We're in section 119. There's drinks. It's going to be a great time, and hopefully we can get a win against the Commanders.
Quick disclaimer, I won't be here. I'm actually calling the game on national radio, so you'll have a fill-in for me.
He's too big for his britches. He is.
But still, come support and listen and hear everything that's going on with your Atlanta Falcons.
I'm so upset. Well, we will see you guys not next week, but the week after as the Falcons take on the Bills. And until then, let's see if they can take on the Commanders and get a win in the win column this week. We'll see you next time, guys.